Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the key national institutions and in the previous lecture we had started with the FSSAI. Okay, and we covered several facts of the FSSAI. In this lecture basically we are going to continue with the FSSAI and we will cover some other facts. I hope that you have revised the facts and figures we had discussed in the previous lecture before you have arrived for this lecture, because as I have told you many times, it is for your own benefit. Okay, so with this note, let's start this lecture, and here we go. So now we are going to continue with the licensing and the registration of the food manufacturers under the FSSAI. But before it, I have a question for you, which is very important. What is the full form of FSSAI? It is Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Okay, I know that most of you had copied from here. Okay, I know this thing, but if you didn't, then it is very good, and if you did, then please revise the full form, because in the real examination scenario you will not be able to copy it from the bottom part. Okay, mark my words. Now come back to the topic: licensing and registration. The FSSAI mandates that all food businesses, including the manufacturers, processors, and distributors and retailers, must obtain a license or registration from the authority before commencing their operations. Suppose this is the XYZ. They want to operate a business in the food industry. All right, as a manufacturer or producer, you can say, as a processor, as a distributor, and as a retailer. Okay, if they want to start a business in any of these forms, they have to obtain a paper from the FSSAI, which is known as the license. Okay, there only they could start their business. If they are not obtaining the license and they starting their business, basically it is an illegal activity, and it may attract a serious, or you can say a negative consequences from the authorities. That's why it is must and required the license should be obtained from the FSSAI before commencement of any business in the food industry as manufacturer, processor, distributor, and retailers. Okay, the license or registration ensures that the food businesses comply with the food safety standards and the regulations. Like suppose this is your XYZ group. Okay, you started either as the manufacturer, the processor, the distributor, or the retailer. Any of them, you had started the business. When you go to the authority, like this one, this is known as the FSSAI. When you go to the authority, basically you are asking for the license, which is granted to you on one condition, which means you have to comply with the standards of food security and have to follow all the regulations for food safety. So this kind of conditions you have to mandate before you obtain your license from the authority. Okay, now this is the certificate basically granted to the businesses, which means that yes, they had oath and they had obeyed, or you can say basically they had promised, not obeyed an oath. They had promised that they will follow the standards, they will comply themselves, and they will maintain their business as per the rules and regulations prescribed by the FSSAI. If they are not doing this, which means that this is the clear-cut violation of licensing agreement. This may attract the serious consequences from the authorities, and even the license could be revoked, because when the business went to the authority and asking for the license so that they could commence their business in the food industry as a manufacturer, producer, distributor, retailer, whatever they want to do, they promise that they will comply with the standards of food security and follow all the regulations. But if they failed to fulfill their promise, it will regarded as a violation of the licensing agreement, because on this agreement they had got the license, and if they are not following the agreement, then why should they have the license? So even their license could be revoked. Okay, and how the authority, which means how the FSSAI say that the XYZ is not fulfilling the promise or you can say not obeying their licensing agreement deeds. How the FSSAI could say that? XYZ claiming, yeah, we are doing all the things promised, we are obeying all the licensing deeds. Then how could FSSAI said XYZ is not? By regular food inspections and sampling. Then only FSSAI will have the evidence to prove that the XYZ is not following standards and not complying with the rules. And regulations. Okay, and when suppose in the condition the FSSAI revoke the license, then it will on the valid grounds, because the FSSAI will have the sufficient evidence to justify their steps. Okay, that's why the regular food inspections conduct. All right, now the food safety and standards regulations. The FSSAI issues various regulations and guidelines related to the food safety and standards. Like as I have told you in the earlier, XYZ is basically the food business. Okay, and this is the food authority. How could the authority claimed on the business that they are not obeying the rules, they are not following the guidelines? How? If they found they are not doing it, and For follow or unfollow, there must be a guideline, there must be a rules and standards like this, scientific steps, or you can say any set of rules which are to be followed. If this kind of rules have been provided by the authority to the businesses, and then the authority through the regular inspections find out XYZ is not following them, then they could claim. If this kind of standards haven't been provided by the FSSAI, they are not able to claim on any business, because business will say you haven't provided us anything. Then how you can claim? Okay, remember this point. These regulations cover various aspects, including permission limits of contaminants. Like I had told you, suppose there are XYZ contaminants, then their permission limits is 10%, 20%, and 5%, and total is 35%. Okay, and this could be done in this scenario. It should not be done like X, Y, Z. Okay, X is 20%, Y is 5%, and Z is 10%. Now the food business could not say like, you asked us to add 35%, we are adding 35%. Actually, the authority asked for this kind of 35%, not this kind of 35%. X should be 10, Y should be 20, Z should be 5. Not X should be 20, Y should be 5, and Z should be 10. Okay, so these are the permission limits of contaminants. Labeling requirements, like if you are adding the chemicals, you could not use the natural word, and if you are using, it is against the guidelines of FSSAI. And advertising and claims made on food products and packaging standards. Okay, now we have the state food authorities. Basically, FSSAI works in close coordination with state food authorities, in short SFAs, in every state and union territory of India. Okay, basically SFAs are responsible for implementing and enforcing food safety standards within their respective region. Suppose FSSAI is working on the national level. Now they had made the guidelines and set the rules and regulations. Rules and regulations for food safety and all. Okay, is it efficient? Is it efficient and effective that only one authority should maintain all the food businesses throughout the country? Is it effective, efficient? Clear cut, no. Because FSSAI is not able to do all these things. Okay, that's why every state and union territory having their own state food authorities, which are responsible to maintain the food safety regulations and standards within their respective states. Suppose A, B, C, and D. These are the 4 states. So FSSAI will set the guidelines and set the rules and regulations. Thereafter, A will maintain its own food businesses as per the guidelines. B will its own, C will its own, and D will its own. That's how the state food authorities work. Okay, they basically ensure the compliance of the businesses with the rules and regulations set by the FSSAI within their respective regions. Okay, now the consumer awareness. It is very, very important, because me and you are the consumers who are consuming the food items or products. And if there is any vulnerable group vulnerable group which would be affected by no standards of foods, then it will be us. Because who is going to consume that sauce? Me and you. Who is going to consume that flour? Me and you. Who is going to consume the other food items? Me and you. Then who should be the most vulnerable group which would be affected if the food items are not as per the standards? We, us. That's why the consumer awareness, it is very very important. It means that the consumer, like this one, okay, who is purchasing the sauce bottle. I am sorry that this bottle is looking like a wine, but please do not mind it. Okay. So the person who is buying the sauce is basically the consumer. And if anything wrong with that sauce, or you can say it is not as per the safety standards of FSSAI, then who is going to harmed? This one, because he is the one who is going to consume it. Okay, that's why consumer awareness is very important. That person who is buying the sauce should not only aware about this thing X, Y, and Z, 10%, 20%, 5%, total 35%. Okay, second case is X, Y, Z, 20%, 5%, 10%, total 35%. Okay, so the consumer who is going to buy the product must not only aware about 35% but also aware about the breakage of 35%. Like X should be 10, Y should be 20, Z should be 5. Otherwise, he will buy it, the other 35%, because he is only aware about the 35%, not aware about the breakage of 35%. And what he will do? He will consume and he will get affected adversely. So that's why each state and union territory has a designated food safety commissioner responsible for overseeing and enforcing food safety regulations within their jurisdiction, which means that there is a creation of food safety commissioner in each UT and states who having a designated area to look after the food items being manufactured, stored, produced, processed, or sold in the market must be as per the standards. And he also ensured the consumers who are buying it must be aware about this kind of things. Okay? It provides information through its website, campaigns, and educational materials to educate the people about making informed food choices. It means that the consumer who is going to buy the food items must be aware about the percentage and their breakage and other food safety instructions. And this could be done through the website, through the campaigns, through the educational materials. Okay. Thereafter, now we have the important section which is known as the composition of FSSAI. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has a well-defined composition. However, please note that the composition of FSSAI leadership and organization structure might change over time due to appointments, retirements, and other factors. Why? Because it's depend upon the cases registered or arrived in last few years or months, because there is no standard and you can say no upper limit of the composition of FSSAI. officially, and you can say strictly. It's basically depend upon the cases registered or arrived in last few years or months. Okay, so that's why it's changed time to time. So it is required a regular follow up of composition of FSSAI and other related issues with it. Like if it has been increased, why it has been increased, if it has been decreased, why it has been decreased. So all these things must be, you can say, must be followed up properly. Okay. Now, so first person is the chairperson. Okay. The chairperson of FSSAI is the head of the organization and responsible for presiding over the meetings and decision making process. The chairperson is appointed by the central government of India. Like if this is an authority and Mr. X has been appointed as a chairperson of the authority, then he will be the person who will give green flag to every major and significant decision of the authority. Why I'm saying major and significant decision of the authority? Why not all the decisions? Because there might be some minor decisions. Okay, there might be some insignificant decisions like about one manufacturer or two manufacturer. If this kind of decisions are also being considered by the chairperson, then what do you think? The efficiency of FSSAI will be increased? No, because every each and every matter is going towards the chairperson. He is not able to handle all these kind of magnitude. Okay, that's why only the major and significant decisions which are taken by the meetings get the green flag from the chairperson. The chairperson is appointed by the central government of India, but there is a condition. The chairperson must be equal to or above the rank of secretary to government. He must be equal to or above the rank of secretary to government. He must not below the rank of secretary to government. Okay. Now, another person we have, it is CEO, Chief Executive Officer. The Chief Executive Officer is responsible for the day-to-day administration and functioning of FSSAI. The CEO oversees the implementations of FSSAI policies and regulations. Now, basically, the chairperson is the senior of the CEO and is responsible for major and significant decision making in the top level meetings of the authority. Okay, but the person who is responsible for the day-to-day administration is the Chief Executive Officer. He will ensure that the policies and the guidelines issued by the authority must be implemented in a proper manner. All right. And if these things are not happening, chairperson will ask the CEO directly because he is responsible for this kind of thing. All right. Thereafter, we had the executive committee. The executive committee consists of members and various departments and experts in food safety and related fields. Basically, they comes under the CEO. The EC comes under the CEO, and they all having chairperson at their top. Now understand the flow. The policy made into the meeting. Thereafter, CEO got the responsibility to ensure the implementation of the policy. Now only a single person could not hold the responsibility for implementation of the food policy throughout the country. That's why they had the executive committee, which is responsible for proper policy formulation, or you can say proper draft of policy formulation, and the policy implementation. So they are basically the executives who execute the policy on grounds. Okay, it's comprised the members of various departments and experts in the food safety and related fields. It also includes the members from the law fields. Like the food safety law the authority is making should not be against any law provision of the country. Okay. The executive committee plays a crucial role in advising and assisting the chairperson and CEO in policy matters and decision making. That's why I told you policy draft formulation is basically under the executive committee. Thereafter, this draft is discussed in the meetings and then final policy formulated. Okay. Thereafter, we have the scientific panels and the scientific community. FSSAI has several scientific panels and comprising experts in specific areas related to food safety and standards, like people experts in the additives field, contaminated fields, okay, other chemical fields, biological fields, like when it's come to the bacterial disease and other disease which could be spread through the food consumption. So this is the scientific panels and the scientific committees which are responsible to provide it the standard scientific guidelines, blue chart to the authority. Thereafter, through the meetings, this blue chart converted into the final draft, and then it is presented to the food businesses owners that you are required to comply with these standards. Okay. These panels are responsible for providing scientific advice and recommendations on food standards and safety to the executive committee. Then the policy draft will make, which will discuss in the top level meetings of the authority. Okay. Thereafter, we have the Central Advisory Committee and the State Food Safety Advisory Committee. The Central Advisory Committee and State Food Advisory Committees are constituted to advise the central and the state government respectively on matters relating to food safety and standards. Basically, scientific panels and the committee are required to maintain the scientific guidelines. But food distribution channels, okay, their manufacturing, okay, their sales, and all these things which are being controlled by the FSSAI, all these areas are basically handled by the Central Advisory Committee when it's come to the center level, and State Food Safety Advisory Committee when it's comprised to the state level. Okay. In this scenario, they making the blue chart over this, then they submit it to the Executive Council. The committee includes representatives from various stakeholders, industry, consumer organization, and experts in the food domain. So all could be inclusive, or you can say it is a overall inclusive approach. So it will for the benefit of all the stakeholders involved in the food industry. Thereafter, we have the Food Safety Commissioners. Each state and union territory in India has a designated Food Safety Commissioner responsible for enforcing food safety regulations within their jurisdiction. Like I have told you, suppose there are A, B, C, and D. These are the states and UTs. Now they will have their own Food Safety Commissioner who is responsible to maintain a check. W, X, Y, Z, to maintain a check on the manufacturing of the food within their respective areas. All the guidelines are followed or not followed. Okay, all the standards are there or not there, and the consumer of that areas must be aware about the latest trend in the food industries. So all these things are being looked after by the respective food commissioner of the respected UT or the state. The Food Safety Commissioner work in coordination with the central government and the FSSAI to ensure compliance with the food safety standards. Because if they are going to enforce the rules and regulations, they even must be aware about the rules and regulations formulated by the authority and the central government. Okay, and also must be aware about the step to be taken if he founds the violator of the act, or you can say of the set of rules and regulations. All right. Thereafter, we have the food safety officers and the inspectors. The FSSAI has designated food safety officers and inspectors who are responsible for conducting inspections, sampling, and enforcement activities to ensure food safety complies at the ground level. Basically, they comes under the Food Safety Commissioner. Because Food Safety Commissioner is a single person and it is not feasible for him to go to each and every place where the food is being manufactured, processed, stored, and whatever. He is not able to go these sites and conduct the inspection, sampling, and ensure the enforcement of the rules and regulations as a single person. That's why under him there are food safety officers and inspectors who are instructed by him as per the latest guidelines which he received from the Central Advisory Committee, State Advisory Committee, or FSSAI, and then he provides the instructions to these people, and these people conducts the inspection, sampling, and the enforcement on the ground level. Okay. The Food Safety Standards Authority of India plays a crucial role in safeguarding public health by ensuring the safety, quality of food products available in the market. For competitive exams, it is possible to well verse in the functions, powers, responsibilities of the FSSAI to answer the related questions accurately. Because as we have discussed various facts and figures in this lecture, I hope that you must be aware about, or you have become aware about, the importance of this topic. Okay, so I hope that you will revise all the facts and figures regarding this topic before you will come for the next topic. With this note, let's end this topic and thank you.